Her mother sewed the wedding dress while the bruises were still fresh. That's how Emily's story began, not with love, not with a proposal, but with a needle sliding through red silk, each stitch sealing her fate. She was 14. The groom was 52. Outside, the suburban neighborhood gleamed with trimmed lawns and smiling neighbors. Inside, the air was thick with silence and unspoken rules. In the Grant household, pain wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Emily learned early that silence kept her alive. You didn't speak unless spoken to. You didn't eat until every man had finished. You didn't ask where the other girls went. That morning, she dropped a glass while pouring tea. Her mother didn't yell, she simply called for her father. 10 lashes. No questions asked. By the time it was over, the floor was dotted with red and the glass had been swept away, as if nothing had happened. Her mother hummed softly as she cleaned the wounds. Then she turned back to the wedding dress, as if her daughter's back wasn't still bleeding beneath the fabric. Emily had learned not to cry. Tears meant weakness. Weakness meant more lessons. So she smiled, thanked her mother, and whispered that she was grateful. Gratitude, after all, was survival. No one in the neighborhood ever suspected a thing. Her father owned a construction business. Her mother volunteered at charity events. They waved to the mailman, hosted barbecues, and never missed Sunday service. Such a good family, people said. No one looked beyond the front door. But inside, Emily was fading. She remembered the night her cousin Rima turned 12. There was a celebration, deserts, gold, bangles, laughter. That same night Rima was promised to a man nearly 40 years older, a trucking company owner from Texas. He already had children from a previous wife who'd fallen ill. Rima didn't cry. She just smiled the way her mother told her to. "You're lucky," her mother whispered. "A man like him will take care of you." That night, Emily didn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling until dawn and made her first decision. If becoming a woman meant being sold, then she would stop growing. Over the next months she stopped eating. First sugar, then rice, then entire meals. She learned to flush food down the toilet and hide it in napkins. The thinner she became, the safer she felt. No body, no blood, no wedding, that was her logic. She called it her slow disappearing. It worked for a while. Her collarbones jutted out. Her dresses hung loose. The aunties whispered that she was cursed, maybe even sick. But Emily didn't care. Every skipped meal was a small victory, a rebellion no one could see. Still, the training continued. Every Friday from midnight until sunrise, she cooked for the men, uncles, cousins, brothers, without sitting, speaking, or looking anyone in the eye. When her hands blistered from the hot pans, her mother said it was good practice for marriage. When oil splattered her skin, she called it strength. At night, her mother rubbed brightening cream on her face. "To make you more desirable," she'd whisper, as if beauty were an apology for pain. Emily hated the smell, sharp, chemical, fake, but she said nothing. Speaking meant punishment. She became perfect at pretending. At school, she laughed with classmates, answered questions, and said "I'm fine" when teachers asked. She learned to lie so well that even she almost believed it. But inside, she was counting names, ages, girls who had disappeared after their first period. She wrote them down in a small notebook she hid under the floorboard, wrapped in an old scarf. Each name was a warning. Each secret was a seed of defiance. She wasn't trying to escape yet, not really. She just wanted proof that she wasn't crazy. That what happened inside her house wasn't tradition. That it wasn't normal to be prepared for marriage at 14. The first time she questioned everything, it was because of a T-shirt. It was a Monday morning, hot and bright. Emily had forgotten her school uniform and grabbed a loose gym shirt instead, plain gray, oversized. At home, her mother's eyes narrowed, but said nothing. By lunchtime, she was called to the science room. Her teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, said it was about a missed assignment. But as soon as Emily stepped inside, the door clicked shut, and the air changed. "Emily," Ms. Rodriguez said softly, "are you okay?" The girl froze. She was used to that question, but something in the teacher's tone made her stomach twist. "I'm fine, miss," she lied. The teacher looked at her sleeves long, even though it was 90 degrees outside. She didn't push, just nodded, excused herself to the hallway, and left for a few minutes. That was when Emily saw it, a slightly open drawer, papers sticking out. Inside were pamphlets with titles like "Your Rights as a Teen," "Forced Marriage is Illegal," "No Exceptions." Her pulse thundered in her ears. She glanced at the door, at the window, then back at the drawer. Before she could think, her fingers reached out and slid the thinnest pamphlet into the waistband of her skirt. When Ms. Rodriguez returned, Emily was seated again, face calm, hands folded neatly on the desk. That night, she locked herself in the bathroom. turned on the faucet so no one would hear, and pulled out the pamphlet. The paper shook in her hands. She read every word twice. For the first time in her life, she realized that what her family called tradition had another name: crime. Child marriage, illegal. Beating a minor, illegal. Controlling what she ate, wore, or said, abuse. There were no religious loopholes, no cultural exceptions, and the part that made her hands tremble the most: teachers and doctors were required to report it. If they suspected it, she stayed up all night memorizing the hotline number, whispering the words that could save her life. I'm not safe. They're planning a marriage I don't want. Please help me. The faucet ran until the water went cold. In the mirror, her face looked different, hollow, pale, but alive. For the first time, she saw not a victim, but a survivor waiting for her moment. She tucked the pamphlet inside her notebook under the floorboard. Her heart still pounded, but the fear had shifted. It was no longer the kind that paralyzed, it was the kind that planned. And in that quiet bathroom, under flickering light, the seed Ms. Rodriguez had unknowingly planted began to grow. Emily didn't know it yet, but that night was the start of everything. The first crack in the silence that had defined her entire life. That night changed everything. Once Emily learned that what she'd endured wasn't culture, but crime, silence stopped feeling like safety, it felt like surrender. The following weeks passed in a strange blur. She smiled, cooked, and obeyed as always, but inside her mind ran like a secret engine. Every word, every rule, every bruise now had a label: illegal. The realization didn't make her brave overnight. It made her cautious, deliberate. She began to see her family differently, not as guardians, but as jailers who smiled for the neighbors. At school she pretended nothing had changed, but in the hallways, she began to look for signs: girls with downcast eyes, cousins who flinched when their phones rang, whispers about engagements arranged since birth. The knowledge she'd stolen burned like fire in her pocket, and she couldn't keep it to herself. It started small. With Rima's younger sister Layla during a family visit, Emily pulled her aside in the pantry, where the smell of cardamom and sugar hid their voices. Do you ever feel, Emily whispered, like the world outside is different from what they tell us? Layla frowned, nervous. You mean, like how girls on TV can choose who to marry? Exactly, Emily said. That's not just TV, that's real. She didn't push further that day. Instead, she slipped a folded note into Layla's pocket before leaving. Inside were 3 words: you have rights. It became a quiet ritual, coded notes hidden in recipe books, whispered lessons disguised as bedtime stories. Some doors don't need keys, she'd say softly, you just have to know which wall to push. At night, when the house fell asleep, Emily rebuilt her old notebook. Not the list of missing girls this time, something new, something alive. She filled the pages with hotline numbers, shelter addresses, names of teachers she trusted. She wrote everything in code, replacing digits with dates from family birthdays, street names with verses from old songs. She called it the notebook. Every page was a map of survival, not just for her, but for the others she could not save yet. Still, she knew time was running out. Her body was changing. The hunger strikes, the cold baths, the desperate prayers, nothing could stop what biology had promised. She could feel it coming like a shadow, and when it arrived, it came quietly. It was dawn when she saw the first stain of blood on her dress. For a second, she thought she'd cut herself while slicing onions. Then her stomach turned cold. Not now, not yet. She pressed her palms against her abdomen as if she could hold childhood inside her for one more hour. But her mother's scream tore through the kitchen before she could move. She's ready. Within minutes, the house erupted with celebration, ululations, phone calls, tears of joy. By nightfall, her father had already chosen a groom, Khalid, 52, a contractor from another state, twice widowed, wealthy. Emily didn't speak. Silence, in her family, was consent. That night, while her mother brushed her hair, Emily tried one last question. Mama, what if I don't want this? Her mother's hand paused mid. Don't be foolish. You're not a child anymore. The time for dreams is over. That was the moment Emily realized. They would rather see her married to a stranger than alive on her own terms. The wedding was set for 2 weeks later. She passed her notebook to Layla that same night. If anything happens to me, give this to your teacher, she whispered. Say the words I taught you. 3 days later, Child Protective Services knocked on their door. Emily had never seen her father's face change so fast. Polite confusion turned to rage within seconds. The agents asked to speak with Layla, asked questions about arranged marriages, expectations, pressure. When they left, the silence in the living room felt like the air before a storm. Her father's voice broke it. Someone poisoned the girls. The search began immediately. Drawers dumped, mattresses torn, cushions ripped apart. They found the shed behind the house, and inside, the ashes of Emily's burned notes she thought she'd hidden when they dragged her into the living room. Everyone was there, aunts, uncles, cousins, her parents standing like judges. Her father held the charred notebook between two fingers. This filth came from you, didn't it? Emily stayed silent. Her father threw the notebook into the fire. You are cursed, he said coldly. Tomorrow morning you will be a wife. No more shame for this family. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat on the floor, staring at the wall, memorizing the cracks, the light under the door. Her mind was a quiet storm. At 3 a.m. she began to pack one change of clothes, 2 granola bars, $20 stolen over months, and a folded page of addresses. She hid the bag behind the bathroom ceiling tile she had loosened days earlier with a butter knife. By sunrise, the house smelled of incense and perfume. Her mother entered, already dressed in gold and red, holding a veil. Get up, she said flatly. The beautician will be here in 30 minutes. Emily clutched her stomach. Something's wrong. It hurts. Her mother frowned. You went to the bathroom 20 minutes ago. I can't, Emily whispered, curling up. It hurts too much. A sick bride was a bad omen. Her mother hesitated. 5 minutes, she said finally. Then you'll get dressed. Emily rushed to the bathroom and locked the door. The moment the bolt clicked, she climbed onto the toilet, reached up, and pulled the hidden bag from the ceiling. Her hands trembled, but her mind was clear. She turned on the faucet, flushed the toilet, and moaned loud enough to be heard. Mama, I can't stop my stomach, she cried. Open the door. I can't. Her father's voice joined hers. Fists pounded against the door. Open it now. Emily climbed again, pushed against the small window above the toilet painted shut for years. But she'd been scraping at it, layer by layer, with that same butter knife. The paint cracked, then peeled. Cold morning air hit her face. She shoved the bag out first, then her shoulders. The frame dug into her ribs. She twisted, gasped, pushed again. Behind her, the lock splintered. One final heave and she was through. She fell 6 feet into wet grass, pain shooting up her ankle, but it didn't matter. She was out. She ran barefoot, nightgown clinging to her legs, breath sharp as glass in her lungs. Voices shouted behind her. Check every street. She couldn't have gone far. She cut through backyards, dodged barking dogs, slipped through hedges, ran until the muscles in her chest screamed. By the time she reached the bus stop, dawn had painted the sky pale blue. A bus was pulling up. She stumbled forward, clutching the bag. The driver, an older woman with kind eyes, looked her up and down, taking in the torn dress, the dirt, the panic. Please, Emily gasped. I need to get downtown. I'll pay you back, I swear. The woman in the first row stood quietly and tapped her card twice. Sit down, honey, she said softly. Emily collapsed into the seat, trembling. Through the window, she saw headlights turning onto the street, her father's car, her uncle's. The driver noticed too. Without a word, she shifted the mirror, blocking Emily from view. You're safe now, she whispered. They rode in silence for 30 blocks. Emily watched the city pass by like a dream. Stores opening, joggers stretching. The ordinary world waking up while she was being reborn. When the bus finally stopped near the courthouse, the driver helped her down the steps. Before Emily could speak, the woman slipped a $10 bill into her hand. You don't owe me anything, she said. Just make it count. Emily nodded. Tears she hadn't allowed herself to cry now, blurring her vision. She stepped onto the sidewalk, barefoot, bloodied, but unbroken. Inside the courthouse, the security guard froze when he saw her. Her dress was torn, her hair tangled, her eyes wild. I need a protective order, she said, her voice shaking but steady. Please, I'm 15. They're making me get married today. For a moment, no one moved. Then the woman behind the counter stood, walked around, and put a gentle hand on her shoulder. You're in the right place, sweetheart, she said quietly. Let's get you safe. That was how Emily's escape ended, not in a dramatic chase or a sudden rescue, but in a courthouse lobby, under fluorescent lights, where, for the first time in her life, someone believed her. She didn't know it yet, but the real battle was just beginning. Emily thought escaping would be the end. She didn't know freedom had its own kind of war. The first days in the shelter were strangely quiet. Theodora, the woman who ran the place, moved like someone who had seen too much and learned not to flinch. She gave Emily food, a clean bed, and a phone she wasn't allowed to use yet. You're safe here, Theodora said gently. But safety doesn't mean silence. Not anymore. Emily nodded, though her hands still shook when she heard footsteps in the hallway. She slept with her shoes on, her bag under the pillow. ready to run if she had to. By the third day, the first attack came, not physical, but digital. A post appeared on her father's Facebook page. Our daughter is missing. She is mentally unwell and was taken by people filling her head with lies. Please help us bring her home. It spread like wildfire. Cousins, aunts, and community members shared it hundreds of times. They called her confused, brainwashed, a danger to herself. They used the same words they had always used to silence women: unstable, emotional, sick. Emily stared at the screen, her throat tight. They're rewriting me, she whispered. Theodora took the phone from her hands. Then we document everything. Truth will be our weapon. But it didn't stop there. The next morning, a black sedan was parked across the street. Theodora noticed it first, engine idling, windows tinted. The car sat there for hours. When police arrived, it vanished. That evening, a bouquet of lilies arrived at the shelter door. No return address. The card read, "Our hearts are broken. Please forgive us. Love, Mama." Theodora took photos before throwing them away. Even guilt can be a weapon, she warned. Then came the videos. On social media, Emily saw her younger cousin, Margie, sitting beside her mother, eyes empty. "She told us terrible things," the girl said flatly. "She said our parents would sell us. She scared us." Emily felt her stomach twist. The video was rehearsed, every word polished, every glance monitored. She wanted to scream, to reply, to tell the truth. But Theodora stopped her. "They want a reaction," she said. "Don't give them one. We respond with proof, not emotion." That night, Theodora introduced her to Patricia, a lawyer with sharp eyes and a voice that cut through fear like a blade. "They'll keep coming," Patricia said. "When power loses control, it turns to chaos. We'll fight with logic, not anger." Emily listened quietly, absorbing every word. She wasn't the same girl who ran barefoot through the suburbs anymore. Her fear had hardened into focus. They began to build a plan. First, Ms. Rodriguez reappeared, the science teacher who had unknowingly started it all. She brought boxes of pamphlets, notebooks, and school records. Emily spread them out on the table like blueprints for war. "What are we building?" Ms. Rodriguez asked softly. Emily's eyes lifted. "A network, for girls like me." She recreated her old notebook, not just a secret diary now, but a survival manual. Each page disguised the truth. Hotline numbers hidden inside math problems, shelter addresses written as recipes, legal rights coded into fake history notes. "We'll call it the Freedom Network," Theodora said. They distributed the first copies through school nurses, mandatory reporters who would know which students needed help. Within a week, 30 notebooks were in circulation. By the next week, 50 each. One was a quiet act of rebellion disguised as homework. Then, one night, the shelter phone rang from an unknown number. Theodora answered, then handed it to Emily. A young voice whispered, trembling, "We found your notebook. There are 6 of us. Can you help?" Emily froze, pen in hand. "Tell me everything." The girls were between 12 and 16, 3 already engaged, 1 set to leave the country within days. They'd been practicing in secret, memorizing emergency numbers, whispering the code words Emily had written. "What if they find out?" one girl asked. "Then you try again," Emily said, "and again, until you're free." For the first time since escaping, she felt something stronger than fear, purpose. But the backlash came fast. Her father's lawyer filed a motion accusing her of corrupting minors, spreading anti-family ideology, and inciting rebellion against cultural heritage. It was absurd, a desperate attempt to turn her into the villain. But Patricia wasn't surprised. "They're testing your resolve," she said. "If we panic, they win." So they didn't panic. They organized. Ms. Rodriguez contacted a journalist she trusted, one who had covered forced marriage and hidden abuse in American suburbs. The story would be anonymous. No names, no faces, just truth. While the article was in production, the Freedom Network grew. Emily translated the guides into 3 other languages, so the message could spread beyond her community. They slipped copies into library books, school lockers, and bathroom stalls, anywhere a frightened girl might find them. Every time one more girl reached a shelter safely, Emily marked it down. 6 saved, dozens learning. Each number was a heartbeat. Then came the fire. It happened on a Saturday morning. The shelter's security camera caught a car pulling into the back lot, tinted windows, no license plate. Minutes later, the car was engulfed in flames. Firefighters arrived quickly. But inside the trunk they found something chilling, a box of dolls dressed in tiny wedding gowns, half melted, half burned. The message was clear: you think you're saving them, watch them burn. Emily stared at the footage in silence. The old fear tried to return, but it couldn't, not now. They want me to hide, she said finally. So I won't. That night, Theodora strengthened security panic buttons in every room, 2 retired officers rotating shifts, emergency lines rerouted, but Emily refused to relocate again. If I keep running, I'm still their prisoner, she said. 2 days later, the proof of her work arrived. A new girl showed up, 14, shaking, silent. When Margaret, the caseworker, asked how she found the shelter, she whispered, "The notebook, hidden in my cousin's room." That night Emily sat beside her, explaining what would happen next. "You're safe," she said softly. "You get to decide what comes after." The girl looked at her and whispered, "You sound like you've done this before." Emily smiled faintly. "I have, and you will too." But the quiet victory didn't last. One evening, her phone rang, a number she hadn't seen in months. Anna, her voice trembled. "They made me come back," she said. "They said they'd hurt my sister if I didn't." Emily's stomach dropped. "Anna, where are you?" "I can't say," Anna whispered. "But they're planning something. Not to bring you home. To make an example of you." Emily felt the blood drain from her face. "What kind of example?" "I don't know. But they mentioned your new school." The line went dead. That night, Emily moved between rooms, unable to sleep. Theodora stayed awake too, checking locks, pacing the halls. At dawn, the motion sensor in the backyard lit up. 2 shadows moved past the fence. One paused by the window. The other tried the back door. "Bathroom." Now, Theodora ordered, shoving Emily toward the hall while calling 911. Behind them, glass shattered. Male voices shouted through the dark. "We just want to talk. Don't make this worse." Emily locked the door and backed away. Her hands found a can of hairspray under the sink, her only weapon. Sirens blared outside within minutes. The voices disappeared. Police found footprints, but no faces. Just a note taped to the gate, written in her native language. "This isn't over." When the hearing finally came, the courtroom was full. Her entire extended family sat on one side, a wall of tailored suits and judgmental stares. On the other side sat Emily, Patricia, and Theodora. Her father's lawyer began first, painting her as a confused teenager manipulated by outsiders. "This isn't abuse," he said smoothly. "It's a cultural misunderstanding, magnified by Western influence." They brought in character witnesses, family, friends, their local imam, even Emily's old pediatrician, who claimed she'd never shown signs of harm. Of course not. Her mother had never let her speak alone. When it was Patricia's turn, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She presented photos of Emily's injuries, medical records, essays saved by Ms. Rodriguez, security footage of her father's car near the shelter. Then she called Ms. Rodriguez to the stand. The teacher took a deep breath. She was the quietest student I'd ever taught. Always polite, always tired. Her essays were full of metaphors about cages and duty. "I should have seen it sooner." The opposing lawyer smirked. "So you admit you interfered with her family's culture?" Ms. Rodriguez straightened. "No, I protected her human rights." Finally, Emily took the stand. Her palms were cold, but her voice didn't shake. Patricia asked softly, "Who chose your fiancé?" "My father," she said. "Did anyone ask for your consent?" "No." "What would have happened if you refused?" Emily met her parents' eyes for the first time. "I wouldn't be standing here." Her father's jaw tightened. Her mother looked down, unmoved. The judge leaned forward. "Do you believe you're in danger if contact is allowed?" "Yes," Emily said clearly. "Not just from them, from the system that lets silence disguise itself as culture." The room fell silent. For the first time, Emily wasn't invisible. She wasn't erased. She was undeniable. The verdict would come later. But at that moment, in that courtroom, she had already won something greater, her voice. The courtroom had fallen silent, but the war was far from over. Emily knew that truth alone rarely saved anyone. It only exposed where the fight had to begin. The trial resumed the following week. Cameras gathered outside, reporters shouting questions she wasn't allowed to answer. "Child bride case sparks cultural debate." One headline read, "Parents accuse shelter of indoctrination," said another. None of them understood that this wasn't a clash of cultures. It was a clash between control and freedom. Patricia warned her, "They'll twist everything. Stay steady." Inside, the air felt heavier than before. The defense called their final witness, someone unexpected. A woman stepped forward, veiled, moving with a quiet grace that drew the room's attention. "State your name," the clerk said. "Fatima Al-Rahman," she replied, her accent faint but steady. Emily's heart skipped. Fatima, the first wife of Khalid, the man she had almost been forced to marry. The courtroom murmured. The defense lawyer looked confused. You're listed as a character witness for the family, he said. Fatima nodded. I know. They reached out, hoping I'd defend their honor. Her eyes found Emily's. But I came to defend hers. The judge leaned forward. Proceed. Fatima's story unfolded like a slow, unraveling thread. She had been 16 when she married Khalid. Within months, she was isolated, beaten, and told she was barren. When she tried to leave, her own family disowned her. He called it faith, she said softly. But it was control, the same control that nearly swallowed this girl. Patricia asked, do you know what happened to his second wife? Fatima's eyes dimmed. She didn't survive. A hush fell over the room. The defense lawyer stood abruptly. Objection. Irrelevant. The judge silenced him. Overruled. Continue. Fatima looked at Emily again. He told me he had found another bride. 14. Obedient. He said she would restore his reputation. That was the moment the courtroom changed. The narrative her family had built that she was sick, rebellious, corrupted, cracked open. Patricia handed the judge a sealed envelope. Evidence from Khalid's immigration file. He's currently under federal investigation for bigamy and fraud. The defense fell silent. When it was over, the judge looked down at Emily. You have endured more than any child should. The court grants your permanent protection order and full emancipation. Effective immediately, all contact with your family is prohibited. Emily exhaled. Not relief exactly, but release. Her parents sat motionless. Her father's face was stone. Her mother turned to the wall, whispering something in their language. Patricia caught a single phrase. She died today. They left the courtroom before the judge finished speaking. That night, Emily sat on her cot in the shelter, the paper in her hands, a legal document that declared her free. The words were heavy and thin at once, like wings made of glass. Theodora came in quietly. You did it, she said. No, Emily whispered. We did. Outside, rain tapped against the windows, soft and rhythmic. Emily watched it fall and thought of all the girls whose names she had once written in her first notebook. Some she'd never see again, some might never escape. But she wasn't a ghost anymore. She wasn't erased. The next months blurred into rebuilding. She stayed at the shelter not as a resident, but as a volunteer. Patricia helped her enroll in online classes under a new name. Ms. Rodriguez arranged speaking events in schools, disguised as youth empowerment workshops. That was where the real movement began. The Freedom Network grew, one message, one notebook, one girl at a time. They translated materials into 12 languages, trained counselors, and built encrypted chat groups that reached across states. Emily became the quiet center of it all. A voice on late-night calls, a name whispered between frightened teenagers. She didn't appear on camera, didn't give interviews. She wasn't looking for fame. She was building something stronger, a web of survival. One afternoon, a box arrived at the shelter. Inside were hundreds of handwritten notes, folded like origami cranes. They came from girls in different towns, schools, foster homes. Each one said the same 3 words. We found you. Looks like your message traveled faster than you thought. Emily traced her fingers over the paper cranes. No, she said softly. It traveled exactly how it needed to, quietly. But not everyone was happy. The Freedom Network's growth sparked backlash online. Anonymous accounts accused them of destroying family values, spreading Western immorality. Someone leaked her old name and location. Do you want us to move you again? Patricia asked. Emily shook her head. No more running. So they strengthened the system instead. Firewalls, security protocols, lawyers on standby. If fear was the price of progress, she could live with that. A year later, the Freedom Network opened its first official safe house, a modest 2-story building painted light blue, its walls covered with murals drawn by survivors. On opening day, reporters came, but Emily stayed in the background, watching through a cracked door. She didn't need to speak. Her work spoke louder than any headline. By winter, the network had helped over 40 girls escape forced marriages and abusive homes. Some returned to school. Some started new lives under new names. All of them carried pieces of Emily's code, her maps, her numbers, her courage. Late one evening, after the last call ended, Emily sat by the window sorting through messages. Her phone buzzed again, an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but the preview caught her eye. I wrote your number on my hand. She opened the text. I'm 11. My mum says I'm getting married next summer. I found one of your notebooks in our library. I don't have a phone, so I borrowed my brother's. Please don't forget us. Emily's chest tightened. For a long time, she stared at the message, the glow of the screen painting her face in blue light. Then she typed back slowly, I won't forget you. Keep the notebook safe. Help is coming. She hit send. then turned to the wall beside her desk, covered with pinned notes, maps, and photos of the girls they had saved. Every name was a resurrection. Months passed. The network expanded to new states, working with social workers, teachers, and former victims who had become advocates. Emily's face remained hidden from the public, but her story became legend, a whisper that traveled between classrooms, churches, and mosques. Whenever she was asked why she didn't go public, she'd smile faintly. Because it's not about one girl, she'd say. It's about every girl they tried to erase. On the anniversary of her escape, Theodora hosted a small gathering at the shelter. They lit candles, one for each survivor. Patricia raised a glass. To Emily, the girl who turned silence into strategy. Emily smiled but said nothing. She didn't need to. The light of the candles reflected in her eyes, quiet, steady, unbroken. When the others went to bed, she stayed behind, staring out at the night sky. Somewhere, she imagined, another girl was reading one of her notebooks by flashlight, memorizing a phone number, rehearsing courage. They tried to erase me, she whispered into the dark. But instead, they created a network that will never be silent again.